My name is Laura. I grew up in a small house with my parents and my older sister, Lauren. Dad worked at the local factory and Mom sold food at the supermarket nearby. We didn't have a lot of money, but we managed. Things changed when my grandparents on Dad's side passed away. They left us some money and their house. The new house was bigger and in a nicer neighborhood. Mom quit her job to focus on the family, but really, she mostly focused on Lauren. Lauren was always the favorite. She learned to read before she started school and finished her schoolwork super fast. Teachers said she was very smart, but they also said she got bored easily and lost her temper. At home, everything was about Lauren. Mom and Dad did everything to make her happy. They signed her up for every class and activity they could afford. "Lauren's our way out," Mom would say with a big smile. "She'll be the first in the family to go to college. She'll take care of us when we're old." And me? I was just there. One day Dad told me, "Laura, you'll have to work hard to get by. You're not special like your sister." That hurt, but I didn't show it. Instead, I helped out at home. By the time I was 14, I could cook basic meals and do laundry better than Mom. As we grew older, the gap between me and Lauren got bigger. Lauren did great in high school. She won awards and got praised all the time. I got mostly B's and sometimes an A. But no one really noticed. When Lauren got into college, it was like she had won a prize. Mom cried, Dad opened a bottle of champagne, and Lauren walked around like she was the queen. "Full scholarship to a top university," she said, waving the letter in my face. "Bet you can't beat that, little sis." I smiled and said, "Congrats, Lauren. You earned it." But later that night, I lay in bed staring at the ceiling. Her words kept playing in my head. "Bet you can't beat that." And she was right. I couldn't. But maybe, just maybe, I could find my own way. The day Lauren left for college, I watched from my bedroom window while they packed the car. There were hugs, tears, and lots of pictures. No one asked me to come outside or be in the photos. The first few months without Lauren felt strange. Mom and Dad acted like the world now revolved around her. They called and texted her all the time. They'd sit around the phone, listening closely while she talked about her classes, new friends, and college life. "Our little genius," Mom would say after every call, smiling proudly. "She's going to change the world." I usually rolled my eyes and went to my room or kept busy with chores. It was easier than hearing them talk about how amazing Lauren was. But then something started to change. The calls came less often. Lauren's replies to texts were short, sometimes just busy, or later. I noticed Mom's worried face more and more. About 7 months into Lauren's first year of college, something big happened. Mom was in the kitchen when Lauren called. Her face lit up when she saw Lauren's name, but while she listened, her smile faded. "Lauren, what do you mean you're tired of us?" Mom said, her voice shaking. "We're your family." I don't understand. I pretended to be focused on my homework, but I was listening to every word. When Mom hung up, she looked shocked, like someone had pulled the ground out from under her. The next few months were tense. Lauren barely called, and when she did, she sounded cold and distant. Then one night at dinner, another shock hit us. "She lost her scholarship," Dad said quietly, his face pale. "Lauren failed most of her classes. She says we have to pay for her college now." I almost choked on my food. "How much?" I asked, already dreading the answer. When Dad told us the number, I thought it was a joke. But his serious face said otherwise. "We'll have to take out a loan," Mom whispered, her hands shaking. "We can't let her drop out. She's so close to her dream." I wanted to shout, "Your dream, not hers," but I didn't. Instead, I got up from the table and went to my room. Over the next few months, I watched as my parents pushed themselves to the limit trying to keep Lauren in college. They took out loans, cut back on spending, and even used some of their retirement savings. All for Lauren, who, honestly, just kept asking for more. During that time, they suddenly seemed to remember I existed. Mom started asking me how my day was. Dad would ask what I wanted to do after high school. One evening, Mom stopped me in the kitchen. "Laura, sweetie, have you thought about college? There are some good state schools nearby." I raised an eyebrow. And how are we supposed to pay for that? She waved her hand like it didn't matter. Oh, we'd figure something out. You're our only hope now. I almost laughed. After years of being ignored, now I was their only hope. But I wasn't going to suddenly chase their approval. I'm planning to work after I graduate, I said, keeping my voice calm. College isn't for everyone. As graduation got closer, the pressure got worse. My parents, drowning in debt from Lauren's college mess, suddenly cared a lot about my future. You could apply for scholarships, Dad said one night. Your grades aren't bad. I sighed. Dad, my grades are average. I'm not getting a free ride. But you have to try, Mom added. We're counting on you, Laura. Those words hit hard. After all the years they barely noticed me, now they were relying on me? It was unbelievable. So I made a choice. The day after graduation, I started looking for a job. I wasn't going to college, at least not yet. I needed to find my own way, away from Lauren's shadow and my parents' unrealistic hopes. My first job wasn't exciting. I got a position at a small advertising agency. Mostly, I filed papers, got coffee, and sometimes sat in on meetings. But every paycheck felt like progress, one step closer to living life on my own. Things at home were getting more tense by the day. Lauren had dropped out of college, leaving our parents with piles of debt and broken dreams. And then the next shock came. I remember it clearly. I had just gotten home from work when I heard shouting from the living room. Pregnant. Mom's voice was loud and shaky. Lauren, how could you be so irresponsible? I peeked around the corner. Lauren stood there, arms crossed, looking like she didn't care at all. It's not a big deal, she said, rolling her eyes. Adam's rich. His family will take care of everything. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Lauren had always been selfish, but this was worse than anything she'd done before. She was acting like her pregnancy was a way to get rich, like someone else would take care of everything. Over the next few weeks, our house felt like a battlefield. Mom and Dad were always on the phone, trying to contact Adam's family. Lauren just sat around like she was some kind of princess, waiting for her prince to come fix everything. And me? I stayed out of it, kept my head down, and focused on work. But of course, that couldn't last. One evening, Mom stopped me in the kitchen. Laura, sweetie, she said in a fake sweet voice, we need your help. Could you watch Lauren's baby sometimes after it's born? Just for a few hours here and there? I nearly dropped the plate I was washing. What? Mom, I work full-time. I can't be a babysitter. Her smile disappeared. But we're family. We have to help each other. Lauren's going through a tough time. I couldn't hold it in anymore. And whose fault is that? Lauren made her own choices. Why should I give up my life to clean up her mess? What came next was a huge argument. All the feelings I'd kept inside for years finally came out. I told them everything, how ignored I'd felt, how unfair they'd been, how tired I was of being treated like I didn't matter. By the end, we were all crying. Mom and Dad looked shocked, like they were really seeing me for the first time. Lauren, who had walked in halfway through, just stood there with her mouth open. I'm moving out, I said, my voice shaking but firm. I can't do this anymore. I need to live my own life. Within a week, I found a small apartment and moved out. For the next few months, I focused completely on work. The advertising agency became like a second home. I signed up for every project, stayed late to learn new things, and slowly worked my way up. Lauren had her baby, a boy. Adam's family agreed to help pay for the baby's needs, but Adam himself didn't want anything to do with Lauren or the child. Last I heard, she was still living at home, and our parents were raising her son while she tried to figure things out. Years passed. At the agency, I'd gone from the person who ran to get coffee to a junior copywriter. But then I hit a wall. One day, my boss Kelly called me into her office. Laura, you've got talent, she said. But without a degree, I can't promote you any further. It's company policy. That night, I sat down and looked at my savings. It would be hard, but it was possible. I'd been living cheap in my tiny apartment. If I kept cutting back, I could afford to take part-time classes at the local college. It wouldn't be easy, but it was time. I stood there in my cap and gown, holding my diploma. I'd done it, a bachelor's degree in marketing and communications with honors. Kelly, my boss, was at the graduation, smiling like a proud mom. "I knew you could do it, kid," she said, giving me a hug. "There's a senior copywriter position waiting for you." From that moment, my career took off. I moved up quickly, first to senior copywriter, then to account manager. I was working with big clients and coming up with big ideas. At a work event, I met Henry. He was smart, funny, and didn't take life too seriously. We bonded over our love for cheesy old 100s movies and silly puns. Before I knew it, we were dating. A year flew by, and then Henry proposed. It wasn't a huge thing, just a quiet moment in our favorite park. It felt perfect. As we started planning the wedding, I knew it was time to face my past. It had been a long time since I saw my family. We drove to my parents' house. Mom opened the door, and her eyes went wide. "Laura, is that really you?" she said. Dad came to the door behind her. He looked older than I remembered. "Who's this?" he asked, giving Henry a cautious look. "This is Henry," I said, holding Henry's hand. "My fiancé." The room went totally quiet. Then, to my surprise, Mom started crying and hugged me tight. Dad shook Henry's hand a little too hard, but still it was something. We all sat in the living room. The air felt heavy, like everyone had things they wanted to say, but didn't know how. Lauren was there too, slouched on the couch with her son on her hip. She looked tired and kind of bitter. "So," Mom said, trying to break the silence, "tell us about yourself, Henry." Henry talked about his job in software development. When I mentioned my degree and promotion, Mom and Dad looked proud, really proud. Two college grads in the family. Dad said, smiling. "Who would have thought?" Lauren let out a loud snort from her corner. "Well, isn't this cute? The prodigal daughter comes back, all successful and engaged. So, what's the rush? Are you pregnant or something?" The room went dead silent. Henry tensed beside me, but I gently touched his arm. "I'd handle it." "Actually, Lauren," I said calmly, "Henry and I are getting married because we love each other and want to build a life together." "Yes, we're planning to have kids," I said. "But only when we're financially ready and can give them a good life. It's called being responsible. You might want to try it sometime." Lauren's face turned red. Mom gasped. Dad cleared his throat, clearly uncomfortable. Henry quickly jumped in to ease the tension. "Well," he said, smiling, "who wants to see pictures of the wedding venue?" The year before the wedding was full of planning, choices, and, unfortunately, family drama. Henry and I wanted a simple but beautiful wedding. Nothing fancy. We just wanted a day that felt like us, not some big, flashy event. But my parents had different ideas. "Laura, dear," Mom said during one of our rare phone calls, "don't you think we should help with the planning? It's not every day our daughter gets married." I sighed and rubbed my forehead. "Mom, Henry and I have it under control. We're adults, remember?" But the calls didn't stop. Dad would call to say they felt left out. Mom would text to ask why I didn't want their opinions. It was exhausting. Then Lauren made an offer. One day, while I was at my parents' house dropping off invitations, she walked up to me with a smile that didn't seem real. "Hey, sis," she said sweetly. "I've got lots of free time. How about I help with the wedding planning?" There was something in her eyes that made me uneasy, the same look she used to have before causing trouble when we were kids. "Thanks, Lauren," I said calmly, trying to keep my voice neutral, "but Henry and I have it covered." Her smile faded, and for a second, I saw something else in her expression. Anger? "Oh, come on, Laura. Don't be like that. I'm trying here." "I appreciate the offer," I said, staying firm, "but really we're good." Of course, my parents got involved right after that. Mom called, sounding upset. "Your sister was just trying to help, Laura. Can't you at least try to meet her halfway?" Dad was more direct. "You're tearing this family apart with your stubbornness," he growled. "Is that what you want?" I wanted to scream. How was I the one tearing the family apart? Weren't they the ones who always treated Lauren like she mattered more? Weren't they the ones who ignored me for years? But instead of yelling, I took a deep breath. Look, I said, keeping my voice calm but strong. This is my wedding. Henry's and mine. I love you guys, but I'm not going to let you or Lauren take over our day. This isn't up for debate. I threw myself into wedding planning with new energy. Every choice, from the flowers to the seating chart, was made with care. This wasn't just a wedding anymore. It was my way of taking control, of showing I was living life on my own terms. 3 weeks before the wedding, everything changed. It was a quiet Thursday afternoon when my phone rang. I saw Aunt Kelly's name on the screen. "Laura, sweetheart," she said gently, "there's something you need to know." My stomach dropped. Then she told me Lauren had decided to throw her engagement party on the same day as my wedding. The exact same day. I just sat there, shocked. I thanked her quietly and hung up. Then, like a wave, the anger hit me. Without thinking, I jumped in my car and drove straight to my parents' house. I stormed in without knocking. "Where's Lauren?" I shouted. Mom rushed in from the kitchen, looking confused. "She's not here." "Laura, what's going on?" I laughed, a bitter, sharp sound. "What's going on?" "Oh, nothing, just that Lauren is planning her engagement party on my wedding day." Their faces went pale. They looked at each other, and that look told me everything. "You knew," I said quietly, my voice full of hurt. "You knew, and you didn't tell me." "Laura, wait," Dad said, holding his hands up like he could calm me down. "It's not what you think. It just happened to fall on the same day. A coincidence." "A coincidence?" I repeated, nearly choking on the word. "There are 365 days in a year, and she just happens to pick mine." Mom stepped closer, eyes full of worry. "Sweetie, we can make it work. We'll go to Lauren's party in the morning, and then come to your wedding in the afternoon. It can be a double celebration." I stared at them in disbelief. All the hurt I'd pushed down over the years came rushing back. "Do you even hear yourselves?" I asked, my voice shaking. "After everything, after all the times you put her first, you're still doing it. On my wedding day." "That's not fair, Laura," Dad said softly. "Not fair," I said, almost laughing through the tears forming in my eyes. "You want to talk about fair? How about growing up feeling invisible? How about watching you do everything for Lauren while I had to take care of myself? How about finally finding happiness, only for her to try and ruin it, and you let her?" They didn't say a word. They just stood there, quiet. And for the first time, I saw something in their eyes. Maybe they finally understood. "I'm done," I said, my voice low but steady. "I'm done trying to earn your attention. I'm done being treated like I don't matter," I said. "You have a choice. You can come to my wedding, all of it, not just a part. Or you can go to Lauren's engagement party. But you can't do both." With that, I turned and walked away, leaving them standing there in silence. That evening, I sat down and wrote a calm but clear email to all our wedding guests. I explained that because of some changes, I needed them to confirm if they were still coming. I didn't mention Lauren or her engagement party. No need to share our family problems with everyone. Over the next few days, replies started coming in. To my relief, most guests said they would be there. It made me feel supported, but there was still a tight feeling in my chest. My parents hadn't responded. The morning of the wedding came. The sun was shining. The sky was clear. Everything was perfect, except for the one thing I kept thinking about. Would my parents show up? As the ceremony time got closer, I waited nervously in the bridal suite. I listened carefully, hoping to hear their voices. But they didn't come. The truth hit me hard. They weren't going to be there to walk me down the aisle. Just as panic started to rise, there was a knock at the door. My best friend Jacqueline opened it, and standing there was my Uncle Douglas, my dad's brother. "Laura," he said, eyes full of emotion. "You look beautiful." "Uncle Douglas," I said, trying not to cry. "They're not coming, are they?" He shook his head gently. "I'm sorry, sweetheart. But if it's okay with you, I'd be proud to walk you down the aisle." With Uncle Douglas by my side, I walked down the aisle. And when I saw Henry's face, all the stress and pain just melted away. In that moment, it was only us, and it felt perfect. After the ceremony, during the cocktail hour, I quietly pulled one of the security guards aside. "If anyone tries to come in late," I said, firm and clear, "don't let them in. No exceptions." Then I went back to the party, ready to enjoy every second. And I did. I was surrounded by people who loved and supported me, friends, family, and Henry. I felt safe. I felt happy. But as I was laughing with some college friends, I heard a commotion near the entrance. My heart sank. I recognized the voices. "Let us in. Our daughter is getting married." It was my mom, her voice sharp and loud. "We're the bride's parents. We deserve to be here," Dad added, sounding angry. I quietly moved closer, staying just out of sight. Through the glass doors, I saw them. My parents, Lauren, and a man I didn't recognize. I guess the man with them was Lauren's fiancé. They were all yelling at the security guard, waving their arms around. "This is our daughter's wedding," Dad shouted, his face red with anger. "We're basically the hosts." But the security guard stayed calm. "I'm sorry, sir," he said. "I was clearly told not to let in any late guests. No exceptions." Lauren pushed to the front, her face twisted in an angry smirk. "Oh, I bet this was Laura's idea. Always has to be so dramatic." I felt a hand gently touch my shoulder. I turned and saw Henry. "You okay?" he asked quietly. I nodded, then looked back at the scene. Now my parents were threatening the guard, saying they'd call the police, that they'd sue the venue. It was both embarrassing and heartbreaking. Then Mom spotted me through the glass. Her eyes went wide, and she started waving and calling my name. Dad and Lauren joined in, making a huge scene. I just stood there watching. These were the people who were supposed to love me and support me no matter what. And here they were shouting, demanding, ruining my wedding day. Then something inside me clicked. I felt calm, stronger than I ever had before. I turned away from the window and walked back toward Henry. "Come on," I said, taking his hand. "Let's go cut the cake. We've got a marriage to celebrate." As we walked back into the party, I felt something lift off my shoulders. For the first time, I had put myself first. Yes, it hurt, but it also felt right. This was my day, my life, my choice. The days after the wedding were a happy blur. Then, on a sunny Sunday afternoon, my phone rang. Mom's name flashed on the screen. I felt a knot form in my stomach, but I answered. "Hello." "Laura," she said, her voice tight with anger. "We need to talk about what happened at your wedding. Your own parents and Lauren. We raised you better than this. We never expected such disrespect from you." She paused, waiting for me to respond. "Are you done?" I asked calmly. "No, I am not," she snapped. "We're waiting for a proper apology from you. You need to fix this." This time I couldn't help it, I laughed. It came out without warning, years of hurt finally breaking loose. "Laura," Mom gasped, shocked. "This is not a joke." I took a deep breath and steadied myself. "You're right, Mom," I said. "It's not funny. It's sad. Sad that you still don't see how much you've hurt me. Sad that you think I owe you an apology." "You didn't even come to my wedding," I said. "But Lauren's engagement party, which she chose to put on the same day, you went to that instead. You picked her again, just like always." There was a long silence. When Mom finally spoke, her voice was soft, unsure. "Laura, we're your parents. You can't just cut us out of your life." "Watch me," I said, surprised by how strong my voice sounded. "I'm not going to say sorry, Mom. And I'm not going to stay in touch with people who couldn't even be bothered to say congratulations on my wedding day." I stood there for a moment, still holding the phone, feeling a strange mix of sadness and relief. Then I felt arms wrap around me from behind. "You okay?" Henry asked, resting his chin on my shoulder. I leaned into him and smiled. "Yeah, I think I am. Better than okay, actually." And I meant it. For the first time in my life, I felt truly free. Free from always being compared. Free from the feeling that I was never enough. Free from trying to earn love that should have been given. In the months that followed, Life found a new and beautiful rhythm. Henry and I focused on our careers, working hard and saving for our dream home. Our evenings were filled with house hunting, dreaming about the future, and just enjoying being together. Work was going great. Without the stress from my family, I had more energy and focus. I felt creative again. I even landed a big client, one that could lead to a promotion. As for my family, I kept my promise. I didn't call, didn't text, didn't check in. It was hard sometimes, especially around the holidays. But Henry's family welcomed me with open arms. They showed me what real love and support felt like. Love without conditions, without guilt, without judgment.